Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, and RHOLM22 is Ryan's. Ryan, how are you today? You got a nice Raiders hoodie on. It's good. It's not as good as the jacket that Coach Pierce had on during the Pac-12 championship game. That jacket was, don't leave that jacket around somewhere because somebody's taking that.
Yeah, this is just a Nike. I don't know if you can see the swoosh. Nike,
Okay,
old school logo. It's not a starter jacket, but it's 71 degrees in Southern California. It's definitely the beautiful shores of December.
Yes, it is.
Can't beat it.
Yeah, a friend of mine back home, back in Massachusetts, was texting me saying it was 35 degrees. I was like, God bless you. God bless you. All right, so we're gonna do an on the spot mock draft right now from Mark for Ryan Holmes to kind of go through real quick. I'm gonna on the spot right now, and let's see here. The Raiders pick. I'm gonna reject this trade. Sorry, that's happening. They reject another trade. Okay, so right now the best players available for the Raiders are Caleb Williams went 1, and Drake May went 2. The best player available is JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and then let's see here. Brock Bowers is available. With an 11th pick, who would you take right now, considering I just mentioned who's available?
Yeah, those names, and even names aside, the Raiders need to get a quarterback in the future.
Yes, they do.
On this roster. I would take Jaden Daniels out of those guys. I think he's the best combination of pocket passing. There was a great article on ESPN today by Mel Kiper, just breaking down like how many touchdowns he's thrown from inside the pocket, how he's run for so many yards. He's basically in rarefied territory as far as rushing yards. He's up there with Jalen Hurts. I believe it was Lamar Jackson. There was 4 current quarterbacks in the NFL that were all really good players that have run for over 1,000 yards. And I think I read somewhere that all but 5 of his touchdowns are from inside the pocket. So this guy's tearing it up inside the pocket. His numbers are up there with Joe Burrow recently. So, like, if you look at what he's done with his legs and what he's done inside the pocket, and you look at the players that have done that recently that are starting in the NFL right now, they're all very good quarterbacks. So I would take Jaden Daniels out of that group. I am a big J.J. McCarthy fan as well. It's tough to know what he could do based on the offense he's in. They don't ask him to do a lot at Michigan, but it is a pro-style offense. He can run. He has a good arm. But I would lean towards Daniels, being that he's 6'4". He's going to weigh, it sounds like somewhere around 210 pounds. And by all accounts, he's going to run in the high 4.3s to low 4.4s when it comes to the 40-yard dash.
Let's see here. We got for the next pick is the 42nd pick. You got Jordan Morgan, Brandon Graham Barton. I'm doing some offensive tackles here. And then for defensive tackle, we got Williams from Ohio State, Mason Smith from LSU, Brian Murphy from Texas. On the edge, we got JT. I can't say his last name, but we'll call him JTT from Oregon State.
Ohio State.
I'm sorry, Ohio State, and then Brandon Dorlus from Oregon. Got a linebacker here, and Barrett Carter as well from Clemson.
I would lean cornerback or tackle with this pick. It's not a very deep draft for defensive tackle, so I think it might be a little bit of a reach there. I'm a big fan of Jordan Morgan. I gave him to the Raiders in my last mock draft. I do like the cornerback out of Toledo as well. I believe his name is Mitchell.
That's who's available, so you want to grab that one.
I would probably lean towards the defensive back there. It's a deep draft for offensive linemen. So either Jordan Morgan or Mitchell, the corner. He's 6'2", he's long, he can run. I would take one of those two guys.
Look at this guy. They didn't even off top of the dome. Off top of the dome. I try to catch him a little bit in this, and I can't catch him on any of these picks. He knows everybody. Um, do one more as it's going through right now. I did one first three picks, and I did Jaden Daniels at 11, Leonard Taylor, defensive tackle from Miami, and then Jonah Ellis from Utah was my third round pick. As far as that one goes, the Raiders 73. So you want to go deep? So what position group are you looking for now? You think? I got McKinley Jackson. I got Chris Jenkins at defensive tackle. On edge, I got Braswell from Alabama and Isaac from Penn State, and I got Jonah Ellis, linebacker, Jalen Ford, and then corner I have Kalen Carson.
What do you have at offensive tackle since we took the
Offensive
corner the
tackle.
last pick?
Offensive tackle. I got Tyler Guyton and Patrick Paul from Houston.
Paul's an interesting one as well. I would probably lean linebacker here. I would probably, if Tommy Eichenberg from Ohio State was there. I don't know if he is, but that's someone that would intrigue me in the third round as far as like pretty much a plug and play linebacker that can run. He's physical. It's tough with not knowing who the coaching staff's going to be, what the schemes are going to be.
Sure.
Obviously, I'd want to beef up both lines, but it's hard to pass up a corner that has Mitchell's upside, and then to get a starting linebacker in the third round, based on what's on this roster, Divine Diablo's got a long way to go for me to say yes for next year's starter.
Yeah. So this is the second time. So I did one yesterday. You did one today, and they both had Jaden Daniels available at 11. So maybe the mock draft gods are helping us out here.
He's going to win the Heisman on Saturday too, and hopefully he doesn't pull up the combine because they may have to move up. I think the Raiders ultimately end up somewhere in the 8 to 12 range when the draft comes around. So
makes sense. Makes sense. I did a poll real quick on Twitter. It said, so because people were having the bye week got very weird very quickly for Raider Nation. Let's try to get them back on track. So I asked them how many wins it would take for Coach Pierce to keep his job. I put 5 wins, 7 to 8. Just move on, and then just play close games, play games close, whatever. And most people said 7 to 8 wins. 56% said 6, 7 to 8 wins. And then I did a hypothetical: if the Raiders don't draft a quarterback and these 3 quarterbacks are available, Kyler Murray, Kirk Cousins, or AOC's my guy, 47% said Kyler Murray. So we'll see.
That's a lot of coin for him.
That's a lot of coin. But I think they're gonna end up keeping him and draft Marvin Harrison Jr. We don't talk a lot. We talk college football on here as well, but we don't talk a lot of like college football playoff. I did want to get your take on FSU, their absence in the top 4. And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I thought they should have been in. The committee moved the goalposts as they normally do to pacify the SEC. I know it'd be hard to leave out the SEC champion, but they did lose to Texas. And I think the minute Texas was 3, you knew that the fate of Florida State was not going to end well. I just think it's tough in this day and age to know what these players go through. Everyone on that roster, the coaching staffs, they did everything they could do. You can't knock their out of conference. They went to a neutral site. They beat LSU opening weekend. They went on the road. They beat Florida, and so they went 2-0 against the SEC. And they went undefeated in their conference. You've never had a Power 5 team go undefeated. And this whole argument that, well, they weren't going to win it because they had their backup, not even the third string quarterback. They would have had their backup guy back. But does anyone really think that TCU and Cincinnati last couple of years had any chance of winning the title? No, they were just put in because they were undefeated or had the right record. So I know it'd be hard to leave out the SEC. I understand that argument. The SEC was down this year. Georgia is not the Georgia of the last 2 years. Alabama is down. They are not the Alabama of the last 8 to 10 years. But in this scenario, the right thing to do would have put Florida State in and let them earn it. Let them go out there and let's see if that defense can hold teams. under 20 points and give that offensive chance. The offense did put up points with the backup quarterback on the road in the swamp against Florida. It's not the offense we saw against LSU. And I just think it just the whole idea that we have 13 people that don't know what the hell they're doing sitting in a room picking the four best teams. It's never been the four best teams. That argument has never, it's always been the four most deserving teams. And this year they changed the words because they knew what they needed to do to get the SEC. And if you look at it from the other angle, I don't know if this is accurate because I didn't check the final standings, but going into championship weekend, 12 of the top 13 teams are all going to be in the Big Ten and SEC next year. The only one that wasn't is Florida State. Every other team going into last weekend. And that's where all the money is. It's in the Big Ten and the SEC. So there was just follow the money here. And that's the reason Alabama got in. Alabama, people don't want to talk about this. They beat a bad Arkansas team by 3. They needed a miracle to beat a bad Auburn team that got boat raced at home by New Mexico State by 3, and they had to convert a 4th and 31. They beat there was another Texas A&M was horrible this year. They beat them by 6. Like, this is not the Alabama that's going out and beating people by 30 and 40 points like they normally do.
Yeah, no, the people who usually try to say, hey, just look at the eye test, right? But then nobody wants to look at the eye test when it came to Alabama this year at all. And I just feel like, I mean, like this idea that, I didn't really want to, like, I've heard people who have shows say, well, I really didn't want to see Florida State without their quarterback. I'm like, well,
it doesn't matter who you want to see. That's not the argument.
That has never been the argument. Like, I mean, the majority of the nation a couple of years ago didn't want to see the Bengals and the Rams in the Super Bowl. Like, you know what I'm saying? They would rather see the Chiefs and the Rams in the Super Bowl, right? So, like, you don't get to do that. I really, these dudes legitimately, they basically like played an entire season of Madden and hit reset and said, okay, reset. We don't like the outcome. We're gonna reset it. We're not gonna have the game that we should have. It should be Florida State. There's not a conversation unless you're just gonna do AFC, NFC, and just have the SEC and the Big Ten just be. That's where we're headed anyway. With all the with the Pac-12 going away and the top 4 or 5. The top 4 Pac-12 teams going to the Big Ten anyway. It's just that's where we're headed. And this idea, like, I didn't want to see this team, and then like advertisers trying to pull. I guess $15 million worth of advertising was going to get pulled out if Florida State was there instead of Alabama. That's a story that I saw on Yahoo Sports or something like that. It's like, this is. Like, we're gonna let them. This is why a playoff was needed. Expanded playoff was needed because you can't have advertisers dictating all this stuff. Like, oh, Jacksonville is gonna play so and so on Saturday. I don't want Jacksonville. So let's get Jacksonville out of there and put Rodgers back. Put the Jets in the playoffs because of the New York market. Like what are we really fucking doing?
And the whole argument, I understand that Florida State is a different team without with Jordan Travis. That's fine, but like, how do you look at everyone in the eye in that locker room that went out and put it on the line for 13 weeks and went undefeated? They won their conference championship. They beat LSU. They beat Florida, and say, your guy's hurt. We're not going to let you play. I'm old enough to remember Jalen Milroe got benched this year by Alabama, and they struggled to beat a horrible USF team. Does no one want to remember that in week 3 or week 4?
That game was horrible.
No one, but they beat up on Chattanooga and whatever their other out of conference. So Alabama did not have a Power 5 win out of conference. The SEC was not good this year, from top to bottom. Georgia was trailing in 7 of the 8 SEC games they played. It's not. I know Georgia would have a beef here, but they didn't win their conference championship. So you got to put the SEC in at the end of the day. That's what they decided to do, and I think it was the wrong move.
They could have. Hey, you know what? You wanted me to do something inventive. They could have had given Michigan a bye and have 4 teams and have those 4 teams play each other and let Michigan play the championship game the week in between the Super Bowl. And there you go.
And I'm not even a Florida State fan. I just think that from everything that's ever happened since this was set up in this championship era, they've never left a Power 5 undefeated team out, let alone a Power 5 undefeated team that had 2 impressive out-of-conference wins. And you can say whatever you want about Florida being 5-7, but they still went on the road in the swamp and won.
Yeah.
Period. The SEC doesn't schedule those games.
Yeah, the SEC can't pick and choose and say we're a big bad SEC, and then when somebody beats an SEC team, but that team wasn't good. That team wasn't good. You gotta. It's a whole conference or none of the conference. Let's roll back to the Raiders and Vikings here. So the Raiders, bye week. The Vikings bye week. What are your thoughts about going into this game here? What do the Raiders really have to do to kind of come out on top. They don't cover tight ends well. That's where TJ Hawkinson might eat in this game. They're getting Justin Jefferson back. They have Jordan Addison as well, who's having a good rookie season, and they have the backup quarterback, Dobbs there. So what were your thoughts about what the Raiders can do against the Vikings?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is if Antonio Pierce wants to keep this job, this is basically a must-win game. You're at home. It's a winnable game. You're playing Josh Dobbs, who's had a very good year, but Josh Dobbs is not Patrick Mahomes. He's not the Miami Dolphins offense. The Raiders have to find a way to win this game. I think the biggest thing that's going to come down to is the Raiders have to figure out what the Vikings are doing on defense. Brian Flores, they lead the league in 6-man pressures. They play a lot of cover 0, but they also lead the league in 3-man rushes. So they're going to put everyone up on the line of scrimmage a lot. And the offensive line and Aiden O'Connell are going to have to figure out when are they coming? When are they dropping out? Where's the blitz coming from? Where's the protection going? And then when they guess right, they have to get big plays down the field to Devontae Adams and they had to Jacoby Myers and even Michael Mayer. And they have to run the football too. The Vikings don't run the ball very well. They turn it over. The Raiders defensively have not been very good at stopping the other team's top weapons. It's one of my biggest gripes with Patrick Graham the 2 years he's been here. They don't really double people. They just play their basic defenses. They can't let Justin Jefferson go off in this game for like 10 for 150 and a touchdown or two. They'll lose the game if they let Justin Jefferson do that. And they have to contain Josh Dobbs. They can't let him get out of the pocket and use his legs because he's very mobile. He can run. They need to keep him in the pocket and make him throw the ball. But they also have to get pressure on him. They can't just keep him in the pocket and not get around him. So it's going to be a tough week for the Raiders because they're going to have a new secondary. They're going to have a new corner out there. Marcus Peters is out. So now it's Jack Jones, probably. Could be Brandon Facyson, could get some snaps. But they need to figure out where Justin Jefferson and stop him. They need to get off the field on third down. On offense, I don't know if Aiden O'Connell, Bo Hardegree, Andre James are going to be able to figure out what Brian Flores is dialing up, down in and down out. And they have to avoid turnovers. They can't let the rush get there and Aiden O'Connell fumble. They can't confuse him and have him throw into coverage when they back out. So this is a very difficult test for Aiden O'Connell. But I do think it's a game they can win. And to answer your question earlier, I think the number is at least 8 for Antonio Pierce to keep this job. Like, he can't just go out and lose 4 of the next 5 games. Like, and then him try to sell Mark Davis. Hey, we beat the Giants with Tommy DeVito when we beat a Jets team, so I should keep the job. Like, he's not going to keep the job. So like, they've had a week off to figure this out. It was interesting. There was a report today by Jeremy Fowler of ESPN that he expects the Raiders to have a new regime in place come the offseason. So from his perspective, from ESPN, it sounds like they don't think Champ Kelly or Antonio Pierce is going to be around.
Interesting. So here's a quick all 22 clip of that Brian Flores defense. You see, this is Vikings Broncos. Clearly, you don't. I mean, if you're sitting in the pocket right now and you are Russell Wilson in this moment, do not know who's coming. They have almost like the entire defense is on is on the line here. You see, everybody looks like they're coming. This time they actually do come, and they end up sacking the quarterback. They end that was a red zone moment for the Broncos here. They end up having to kick a field goal. They won the game by 1 point, but they had to kick a field goal there. Russell Wilson could not find the open receiver. And then Ryan did a great point of pointing out the time they dropped 3. And they drop everybody else out, give you the same look, and then only rush 3. Here's a look at that. Same thing. And then you can see Russell Wilson almost expecting that rush to come. and then he gets rid of it and checks it down so quickly that he probably wishes that he's probably kicking himself because there's a big play behind that. He ends up dumping it down to the running back, and they end up having to punt on that play. So that is the mystery of facing Brian Flores. And I think the thing about it is Brian Flores usually really excels against quarterbacks like Aiden O'Connell. Like, I mean, the numbers are usually, obviously his numbers are usually, better against the Herberts and other quarterbacks. Other top quarterbacks have pretty good numbers against Flores, but the quarterbacks like him, a guy who's not mobile, a guy who is young and inexperienced, you would think that this is a really tough task for Bo Hardegree this week and this offense.
Yeah, if I'm Bo Hardegree, you're going to take shots down the field with Devontae Adams, and you just got to hope you guess right that when they bring pressure, you have him one-on-one outside, you're working vertically. But there's not really going to be any solutions with hot routes because those guys are going to have to stay in and block.
Yep.
But the one way to combat that is you go empty and you go 5 wide, and you make that you can't let them go up on the line of scrimmage if you go 5 wide. But you have to understand where the hots are and get the ball out. And they have to break tackles. They can't let the first guy bring them down. It's tough to run against this team too, because when they have all those guys at the line of scrimmage, it's hard to block them all quickly and win those blocks. But if you can get them blocked up and get a crease, then Jacobs can get into the secondary. There's no one back there. So I really want to see what Bo Hardegree's cooked up in the off week here to really combat this defense, because the Raiders haven't really played a defense yet that does what Minnesota does. And like we said, they rush 6 more than anybody, and they rush 3 more than anybody, but it all comes out of the same look. You don't really know. I read an article, too, where Josh Metellus, who was a safety / linebacker for them, they were playing Soner earlier this year, and the coaches on the sideline were basically trying to yell into the offense when they were blitzing and when they weren't. And he kept laughing because he says they were wrong every time. Like, even the other team's coaches on the sideline had no idea what they were doing play to play, and the Vikings defenders were just eating it up. Now, having said that, after we just talked about him being really good at getting pressure, you got to block 99. You have to figure out where Danielle Hunter is. But this team will give up points too. Like, if you guess right, you're going to have chances to make plays, and the Raiders have to capitalize when they have chances to make plays down the field.
Yeah, they have 6 out of the last 7 games the Vikings have played. They have given up 22 points or less. Danielle Hunter, who I did not know was a fellow Jamaican. I did see the back of that helmet. You see I appreciate that.
What's 22 points? The Raiders don't score 22 points. What's 22 points? I'm not familiar with that concept.
I'm not familiar with that concept either. So I don't know. I don't have a. I like Murphy. I like obviously. I know very well Mekhi Blackton very well. He's having a pretty solid rookie year for them. Jordan Addison is coming in as well and play well for them on the offensive side. But I think the defense, they're very. It's how can I put it? They're in sync defensively. Like, there are not a lot of tells to when they're coming and when they're not. So I think that's probably one of the coolest things that about this defense, and probably one of the reasons why this Brian Flores would be one of the guys I would interview for a opportunity to coach the Raiders in the offseason. Would be him for that reason, because they are not. I mean, and they're not even like an overly talented bunch. I wouldn't say this is but besides Hunter and maybe a couple other guys, I'm not gonna say that I would rummage this through this team and say I want all these defenders. But they are very in sync defensively. They like that scheme and they know it. And it leads to a lot of people getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, and when they bring 3 or 4, you still have to know where 99 is and double team him, and then you got to hope that your other guys win their one-on-one blocks, because if you're devoting all your attention over there, you can't let the other guys wreck the game on that defensive line. I do think that the Raiders can score points in this game. The key thing, they can't turn the ball over, and then you're going to have to like it when AJ Cole comes out there to punt and just give you field position. The Raiders can't get behind the sticks in this game. And then that's when the pressure really comes. If you're in 2nd and 10, 2nd and 12, 3rd and 8 plus, it's going to be really hard to move the football on this defense.
Does Bo Hardegree have anything else after the first drive? Like that's the big thing, right? I mean, does he have anything else in the bag after the first drive? They usually, when they're at home, especially, it seems like they have a really good first opening drive. Everything's set. They end up scoring somehow. Probably a lot of times it's Jacoby Myers who scores, right? So they find a way to get 16 in the end zone, and then you feel good, and then maybe you got to maybe a 10-0 start in the first quarter. I think very few teams have scored as less points than the Raiders have in the second half. They've not done a good job in adjustments and making that second half. So it's not looking. I mean, we'll talk about that when we do the production part of it. But he has a lot to show as far as this goes. And you know what, the it's funny because the argument people use, he's never called plays before. The guy who he's one of my favorite coaches in the league, Kevin O'Connell. He never called plays, and he was working with McVay. McVay called the plays. Mike McDaniel, Shanahan called the plays. He worked with him. It's you at this time right now. You've called enough games where you got to you have to be able to call a game and get this team set up for success. And if Aiden O'Connell is messing up and screwing up some things and you're showing that inexperience, I can deal with that part of it. But let us see that part on all 22. Let's not see the bland offensive game plan that you can't get things going.
I think the tough part here for Bo Hardegree is I don't expect him back on the staff next year. If they keep Antonio Pierce, I would think that Pierce should go outside the building to find an offensive coordinator to come in and work with him. Or if the Raiders do decide to go in another direction at head coach, then clearly Bo Hardegree won't be back. Bo Hardegree is coaching for his next job right now. And he needs to go out there and put stuff on tape to lead other teams to want to hire him as something more than a quarterback's coach.
Yep.
So he's been in the lab for 2 weeks. Hopefully he's dialed something up. He's probably broke down all the film of this Vikings defense, and hopefully he's found some areas. Now, the players still have to go out and execute it. But the Raiders do need to find a way to get explosive plays against this type of defense. If the Raiders can't just line up and go 10, 12, 13 play drives against this defense, because something is going to go wrong. There's going to be some negative plays. There might be a turnover. There might be behind the sticks down and distance wise. So they're going to have to get 4 or 5 explosive plays, I would think early, in the first half into the early third quarter to back some of this defense off. Because if this defense can just get up on the line of scrimmage and just start bringing the house, and Aiden O'Connell can't function or they can't get plays dialed up, they're just going to keep bringing it. But number 17 is still out there. There's going to be a chance for Davante Adams to go off in this game because they don't really have anyone that can guard him. And if they're going to leave him one-on-one, Aiden O'Connell should target him 20 times in this game. I don't care about the other guys on this team. This is a game where 17 needs to go out there and dominate.
And I totally agree with you, but it seems like they got some first drive stuff for him, and you'll see him, and Davante wants to he starts shaking and doing his little thing and you can see him getting lathered up after 4 or 5 targets, and then next thing you know, it's like he's not on the field again. It's just I'm not saying I don't know. That is the weirdest. That's the weirdest thing to me about the whole situation is that they just can't. They seem to lose track of where he is on the field and can't get him involved a lot. I mean, this is a game where you got to get him involved a lot. And I think a lot of times what I'm worried about too is this. I don't know how he gets through. I mean, I think the Raiders are going to obviously force turnovers from Josh Dobbs because he turned the ball over the last couple of weeks a lot. But again, how do they get through this game without them turning the ball over? Because this defense is just they thrive on that stuff. And they're going to be in the backfield a lot regardless. And I don't know if I trust Andre James to get this to get this done. Like this is not a good matchup for the interior offensive line for the Raiders.
I think it's interesting going back and looking at for as well as Aiden O'Connell played against the Chiefs didn't double team Davante Adams very much. And there were several instances where he had one-on-one coverage and got open, but Aiden O'Connell went to the other side of the field post-snap. Like, he just immediately went away from Davante Adams. So I don't know if Aiden O'Connell's playing that game where, like, he doesn't want to force the ball to Adams. Pre-snap, maybe the look says to go somewhere else, but there are times in this game where he's just going to need to say, you know what, if it's one-on-one pre-snap, I just need to trust 17 and get 17 the ball. And we'll see what happens there. I don't expect big games out of everyone on this offense. I think, Josh Jacobs may get 80 yards in this game. I don't think he's going to go off for that. Mm-hmm. I think they might be playing from behind a little bit, but at the same time, if Davante Adams doesn't go off in this game, it's hard for me to see the Raiders offense being able to have enough consistent drives to score over 20 points against this defense the way the Vikings are playing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a tough situation, and back to Jeremy Fowler. That's interesting because I didn't hear that one. So that was today or just recently that he said that he expects a brand new spanking.
There was an article on ESPN today where it was kind of like one of those question and answers where they had like 3 or 4 different people from ESPN answering, like Dan Graziano, and they were just asking about certain topics around the league. And Fowler's answer to one of the questions was he does expect a new regime in Vegas next year. I forget what the question was, but that's where he went with it. And he was talking about quarterbacks, what they're going to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. Basically, the only thing they can do is release him post June 1 designation. He expected Garoppolo to end up back in New England if Belichick is still there.
Interesting. That's interesting. I did see that there might be conditions they might give them. They might try to get Belichick to either get a GM or stay. Or to get a GM if he wants to stay, or they might just part ways if he doesn't want to get a GM, and then they might somehow, some way that Vrabel might try to get himself away from the Texans. Which, if Vrabel would be a hot commodity from anybody if he was a free agent head coach. So you got to look at that too as well. But we have to go to the national guys for Raider News. So if one of them say it, one of those guys say it, if Tom Pelissero said it, you know what's going down. So as far as that goes, Raiders Vikings on Sunday. So what do you think as far as where we're headed as far as this goes, as far as your prediction of this ball game?
It's interesting today's Wednesday, and that coming off the bye week, Max Crosby and Colton Miller, neither one of them practiced today, which to me is a little concerning, because normally if they had played on Sunday, you want to give them a veteran Wednesday off to recuperate. That's fine, but they've had a week and a half now. Mm-hmm. So I would think that both of them are kind of in doubt to play this week. And obviously the Raiders went out and added Janoris Robinson. They added a defensive end and Charles Snowden to the practice squad. I do think there's still a chance that Max Crosby is going to play this week. If Max Crosby does not play this week, I have a hard time seeing the Raiders winning this game. Mm-hmm. But I will say this. I do think the Raiders play better at home. I think the energy is better at home. I think Aiden O'Connell's better at home. I'm going to give the Raiders a win here on a last-second field goal. I think this thing's going to be tight. I think there's going to be some turnovers by both teams. This is not going to be an easy game to watch for either fan base. But I think Davante Adams does enough in the passing game. Josh Jacobs gets roughly 80 rushing yards. I'm going to give the Raiders a win here, 23-20 on a walk-off field goal by Daniel Carlson.
23-20. Wow, 22 points. That'd be interesting.
Defense might score in this game.
Yes, and I don't think the defense that I don't know. I think other defense might score in this game. I'm gonna go Vikings here. I'm just gonna write down your turn. I'm gonna think the Vikings gonna win this game. I think this is a breaking point for this regime. For if they want to stay, I think it's pretty clear. I think if Kirk Cousins is playing in this game, I don't think they have a
Oh,
chance
I
to
would
win the
take the
game.
Vikings.
Yeah, I think they have no chance. But I think Josh Dobbs coming back to earth a little bit. I think he does one of the things that really bother every single Raiders team we ever see over the last 20 years. That when he runs, the Raiders don't have anybody to contain a running quarterback. I think the secondary plays where the Raiders might cover the initial routes, but then if he expands some plays, they might be able to make some plays. I think getting Justin Jefferson back is huge. I look for TJ Hawkinson to have a huge game. It's funny, both of these teams struggle to cover the tight end. So I mean, we would love to see Michael Mayer get going for the Raiders. But I like this offensive line. I like this team. Also, this head coach. I think to break it down really, head coach the coaching matchup goes to the Vikings. The quarterback will probably have to go to the Vikings. The defense goes to the Vikings. I think there's a lot of check marks that go to the Vikings here, so I'm gonna go to the Vikings, win the game. Let's go 24-17. They'll get a turnover from the Raiders some point in this game, but I just think the Vikings are going to be, and plus also this Kevin O'Connell is a daring coach who likes to do things daring on special teams as well. So look out for fakes as well. But I like the Vikings in this game 24-17 as far as that goes. I think they're still going to hang around that playoff race in the NFC as far as that one. And do you think the thing I wrote down one thing I wanted to ask you about Colton Miller and Max Crosby? You think possibly because it's a Sunday, Thursday coming up, they just want to have those guys as much rest as humanly possible?
I hope so.
I hope so too.
If Antonio Pierce doesn't win these two games, Antonio Pierce will not be the Raiders coach next year.
No,
it's not. They need to win these home games. I do think the Raiders come out fast. They've been good out of the gates at home. The Vikings can't run the football. So if the Raiders get up, 10-0 early, it's going to be hard for Josh Dobbs to pass that team to a win. Especially if Max Crosby does play.
So he can't have 30. He can't have like 35 attempts.
He's going to have to because they can't run the football.
Yeah,
that's their downfall. They don't run the ball, and I think Davante Adams has a huge game, like 10 for 150 in a touchdown type game. Like this is the game we've been waiting for all year for Davante Adams, and honestly, he needs to show out and he needs to prove that he's still one of the top guys in the league. You can't go through getting 4 or 5 catches for 60 yards every week and not scoring any touchdowns. Davante Adams needs to find the end zone.
I mean, he also, I mean, like, if he needs to, everybody, the cigar smoke was flying. Everybody was, on the everybody's on that in their locker room. He really needs to go into go. And if they lose, they lose. But he does, to your point, he does need to go into that offensive room, head coach and the offensive coordinator, and say, listen, like, if we're gonna go down, let's go down with me and Josh carrying the team. Like I can live with that. When he has 5 catches in the first quarter and then nothing rest of the game, that's not good football.
No, and that falls on the quarterback and the coordinator. They have to dial plays to get him open. He's going to have chances in this game one-on-one on the outside quite a bit. The Vikings aren't going to double team him very much. So Aiden O'Connell's just got to trust him and get him the ball. And maybe we see Trey Tucker catch a deep ball in this game where they give him a chance down the field. Aiden O'Connell's going to have to get the ball down the field. I know a lot of people like, well, the offensive line's got to hold up. Not against this type of defense. If you're running go routes and you're in the shotgun and you catch it, take 2 or 3 steps and just throw it down there, because there's going to be no safeties over the top. Like, you just got to give your guys chances. Maybe there's a big pass interference down the field, but Aiden O'Connell's just got to let it rip. in this game when he gets those looks.
I would say this: if you're Antonio, if you're Bo, if you're Aiden, like, what do you have to lose? Let it fly.
They're
Like,
just.
like, let it be. I mean, the most secure person on the team who's going to be guaranteed to be here next year is going to be Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell's not going anywhere. He'll be the backup next year anyway. He'll be here, but like for you, like, don't go down being conservative and being all that stuff. You're gonna go down with some fire. Go down swinging. You know, maybe that could save you a little bit, but we'll see what happens there as far as that goes. Anything else on this ball game?
No, I think it'll be a good game. I think there's going to be quite a bit of Vikings fans. I saw today that
Yes, they will. They travel.
Vivid Seats said they expect 54% Vikings fans. I guess there's a large contingent of Minnesota-born people that live in Vegas. That I was seeing something online. There's a lot of people.
I can't blame them.
Apparently, lot of Vikings fans live in Las Vegas. So this is not going to be like, I was at the Jets game. It was probably 80-20 Raiders fans. I know the Giants games was a lot of Raiders fans. These Vikings fans are probably bought these tickets when Kirk Cousins was still there when they got and thinking they were going to be a playoff team and they're ready. So I do think it's going to be 50-50. So the Raiders may have some opportunities where there may be some crowd noise when they're on offense, but I do like the atmosphere in there since Antonio Pierce has taken over, and I do think the Raiders find a way to win this game.
And just a quick look at it real quick. The Vikings are in 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they're in the playoffs currently right now. They're in the 6th spot.
Yeah.
But two teams that are really coming on, which is really, I mean, the Packers and the Rams are coming on as well. All right, thank you for joining us here on the Put On the Raiders podcast. I just want to say, on a sad note, I want to heart goes out to anybody who was at anybody who has anybody or any affiliations to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. That was pretty. I'm sure that was a pretty scary thing to have to do, have to go through. You know, that's just unfortunately the world we live in. Kind of really sad. And that's really kind of close to home. I know the Raiders put out a statement about it as well. They share a home with Allegiant Stadium with the Running Rebels as well too. So, you know, hearts go out to all the people out there in Vegas.
That's the second shooting they've had in Vegas in the last
the country thing.
Maybe 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
Didn't they have the country concert too as well too, right? The country, yeah. So
which was right. The guy was, I believe it was in the Mandalay Bay. So I mean, it's not very far from UNLV's campus. I mean, we're talking a couple of miles.
Yeah,
it's that where there's been 2 shootings in the last 4 or 5 years. So just hate to see that, and I feel for anyone involved or anyone that had loved ones that were injured in the shooting.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, Red Nation, take care. Be safe.
Take care.